Most of us know the story. A nomadic warlord sweeps out of the Eurasian steppe, leaving behind nothing but burning cities and literal mountains of human skulls. This map shows the sheer mechanical efficiency of that conquest. The Roman Empire took roughly 400 years to reach its peak. The Mongol army swallowed a comparable landmass in just 25 years. Here is the strange part. When European conquerors like Alexander the Great or Napoleon built massive empires through warfare, history recorded them as strategic geniuses. Their brutalities are smoothed over, and they are celebrated as visionary leaders. Genghis Khan, however, was written off as a mindless, primitive savage. That specific narrative was deliberately engineered. In the 19th century, Western historians and scientists actively tried to prove Asian populations were inherently inferior. They even coined the racial slur Mongoloid to equate Khan's people with slowness and stupidity, intentionally burying the actual mechanics of how his empire functioned. When you examine the historical record, a completely different person emerges. He was absolutely ruthless to those who fought him, but he was also the architect of a highly progressive state. To understand his system, you have to look at the environment that produced him. Temujin, the boy who would become Genghis Khan, grew up in an incredibly violent nomadic culture. His father was murdered, his tribe abandoned his family to starve, his mother had been kidnapped, and as a young man he was enslaved by a rival clan. Surviving all of that taught him a harsh lesson. The traditional power structures were entirely useless. Relying on aristocratic families and noble bloodlines only created unstable, treacherous alliances. So he stripped away the ancient titles and rebuilt his society purely on merit and loyalty. Lineage meant nothing. Under his rule, an ordinary shepherd who showed skill in battle and loyalty to the state could be promoted to command thousands of men, bypassing his own family members. This chart details the mathematical exactness of his military structure. He organized his soldiers into rigid, base 10 units. Every group of 10 men had a leader, scaling up perfectly into groups of 100, 1,000, and 10,000. This allowed an extraordinarily small army, maxing out at around 100,000 warriors, to efficiently control an empire of over 1 million nomads. They applied that same discipline to their tactics. Instead of relying on brute force, they utilized complex maneuvers like the feigned retreat. Units would pretend to panic, feigning a chaotic retreat to pull opposing armies out of their defensive lines. Once the enemy broke formation to chase them, the Mongols would instantly regroup, turn, and encircle them. This level of coordination is exactly why they rarely lost. Their dominance came from cold, calculated engineering and an aggressively egalitarian operating system. That engineering extended far beyond the battlefield. To manage his newly unified, highly diverse population, he implemented a comprehensive legal code known as the Great Law. Drawing directly from the traumas of his own family, he explicitly outlawed the kidnapping of brides and the selling of women across his territories. Violating these rules carried an immediate death penalty. He also recognized that forcing a single belief system onto millions of people would guarantee massive internal rebellions. Even though he practiced traditional shamanism, his laws guaranteed absolute religious freedom. Buddhists, Christians, and Muslims were all allowed to practice openly without fear of state persecution. He even restructured the tax code to build a knowledge economy. Despite being illiterate himself, he completely exempted teachers, doctors, scholars, and religious leaders from all public taxes and duties. If a city resisted his army, he would annihilate it entirely. But for the millions of people who lived within his borders, these domestic policies provided a level of social stability and investment in human capital that Europe wouldn't see for centuries. At its height, the Mongol state had a landmass that today contains roughly 30 different countries, stretching all the way from the borders of Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean. To hold that immense space together, he established the world's first international postal system. Riders known as arrow messengers operated out of relay stations placed exactly 20 miles apart, allowing information and state orders to travel across the continent at record speeds. That same infrastructure secured the Silk Road. By policing the roads and eliminating internal borders, the Mongols turned a dangerous, fragmented path into a massive, protected free trade zone. For the first time in history, Europe and China were safely and continuously linked. Look closely at this carved wooden printing block. Because the trade routes were now stable, advanced Chinese technologies like paper printing, the magnetic compass, and gunpowder were finally able to travel efficiently into the West. The sudden influx of these specific tools, combined with a vast exchange of new ideas and cultural goods, provided the critical technological spark that ignited the European Renaissance. Genghis Khan was a warlord who exacted a massive human toll, but by dismantling archaic aristocratic systems, enforcing civil order, and literally paving the roads between East and West, he set the physical and cultural foundations for the modern, globalized world.